Coming up on Headline Humboldt, we interview 4th District Supervisor Natalie Arroyo about a pending budget crunch facing Humboldt County and how that might impact area businesses and residents. Also, we explain how economically transformative a wind energy project could be for the Samoa Peninsula and broader Humboldt County. Coming up now on Headline Humboldt. From the top of Humboldt Hill, this is Headline Humboldt. I'm James Falk. Thanks for joining us. When it comes to public policy and governance, the task is always difficult, the road ahead full of potholes and washouts, and there are no maps to guide us to satisfactory solutions. There is no right way, only a series of choices made with limited information and the best of intentions. And where we end up has as much to do with random chance as with our most meticulously laid plans. Such is the nature of leadership. We elect people to navigate the troubled waters of politics and economics and then credit or blame them according to how those bets pay out. Is it fair? Not hardly, but is there any real alternative? We all have opinions and passionate beliefs about how this world and all its systems should work. But then we hold those expectations up against the fickle fingers of fate and random chance. The two rarely overlap. No one knows where we're all going to end up, and anyone who says otherwise is full of fish guts. Our only hope is to choose the smartest and most capable people from our midst to steer the boat and get us up and over the shoals and sandbars that always threaten the future. As ever, there are no guarantees. Joining us now in studio is 4th District Supervisor Natalie Arroyo, who took office just a few short weeks ago. Thanks for joining us, Natalie.
Thank you for having me.
So since you have taken office, the sky has opened up and things have gone haywire. The earthquake, the storms, I mean, now there's a looming budget crisis. So talk a little bit about how your experience of, taking to the board and then sort of the unraveling.
Well, I swore into this position on December 20th, which was Earthquake Day.
Yeah.
Actually outside on the steps of the county courthouse because the power was out. So hopefully my term continues to get better from there.
Yeah.
But I am, entering a time where there are unique challenges. And I think, when I first got elected to the city council in Eureka a little over 8 years ago, we faced some budgetary woes as well. So it's certainly not fun to deal with and not what anyone, would hope for, but it is something I've experienced before.
How much confidence can people have in the process of trying to find solutions to crises like this? And it's a messy thing where people bat around different ideas and it's not all linear. But how much confidence should people have in the democratic process to see these things addressed?
Well, I think there is a pretty robust public process for the county around its budget and its budgeting, transparency. We ultimately want community members to feel like they understand what's going on and our own staff to feel like they understand what's going on. Part of the challenge right now is we're leaving a time of, some challenges with even really understanding the county budget fully, all of our revenue streams, and budgetary position, and now entering into a time of more certainty when it comes to our own internal processes. But when it comes to the economy, there are a lot of unknowns, so we're budgeting, we're making projections pretty conservatively around sales tax in particular.
Yeah, which is a huge source of local revenue. Right?
It is. It really is. Yeah.
And now, according to the report I read in the Lost Coast Outpost, the county's looking at a $12.29 million budget shortfall. Those are based on, like you said, those conservative estimates. As you guys are moving forward in the process, how are you approaching that? Have you told department heads to sort of, kind of keep their minds open for where there might be some fat to cut? How is staff approaching that now?
Sure. From our last board meeting, one of the things we said was, we're anticipating having a flat budget when it comes to this year's expenses. Part of the reason we have a projected shortfall is that staff expenses, continue to grow over time, and so we do anticipate that there will be some fiscal conservatism needed there, and we certainly want to tighten our belts and curtail unnecessary spending or even spending for new programs. So essentially what staff have been told is to kind of maintain the status quo, and then we will see where we can go from there. I am on the budget committee, so we established a budget committee to kind of take a deeper look at the budget, but we haven't met yet.
Yeah.
So more to come.
A long process, I'm sure.
It will be.
a lot to look at. How much would you say that, the whole COVID thing has affected the budget? Does that play into it at all, or is it just merely a matter of, market conditions and sales tax?
My understanding was that, and I wasn't on the board during that time, but we certainly saw this in the city of Eureka, and I know that the county saw it too, a lot of dynamism around staffing, a lot of people choosing to retire or leaving the workforce, either temporarily or permanently, and a need to really attract and retain new employees. So there was certainly some dynamism around staffing at that time, and that I think has impacted our budget. And beyond that, people spent less for a little while and then spent kind of wildly. So we saw some ups and downs with sales tax as well. Yeah.
So hard to be, hardly any consistency.
Yes, it was a very dynamic time, really challenging to make good predictions. And so much of our budgeting in local government and in government in general really relies on effective predictions, and it's hard to do right now.
Absolutely. One of the things that you guys have been talking about recently is a new behavioral health crisis center. Just to personalize it a little bit, my dad suffered from paranoid schizophrenia. And so I understand the value of mental health care, and I know that there has been a lack of facilities up here and a lack of treatment options for a lot of folks. Can you talk a little bit about what the behavioral crisis center might look like and where you guys are thinking it might go?
Yeah, so there's a proposed partnership with Mad River Hospital. They have some property near their existing facility in Arcata that they are able to offer up for this, for the siting of this center. And we are working closely with them on a grant application, so the funds aren't certain, but the county did put forward some matching funds. So if we're able,
helps, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So many grants require there to be local funds contributed towards the goal, and that was one thing that we determined to be really important. So should we get that funding, that'll be moving forward, and it would be a fairly large facility offering a couple dozen beds, likely more, but it has yet to be designed, and it would be modeled after the Be Well facility in Orange County. That's a similar type of facility, offering both mental and behavioral health care services, as well as treatment for people who have co-occurring mental health issues and substance use issues at the same time.
So how would this differ from like Semper Virens, which everyone sort of thinks of as our mental health facility?
Yeah, so that's a crisis facility for people who are at risk of harming themselves or others, and that's really intended to provide care for just a short period of time. This would allow people to have care for a little bit longer. It's still intended to be transitional, so around 30 days, perhaps more, perhaps less, depending on the person, but then getting them into other services and housing if they need it would be the goal after that. So this would provide something beyond that, couple day window that Semper Virens provides.
Yeah. I remember hearing as I was coming through college that Governor Reagan, back in the day, made a lot of cuts in terms of county mental health money, and that there used to be in counties like a county mental health hospital or mental hospital and a facility like that, and that obviously hasn't been the case, and that issue has fed into our jail population and homelessness and that sort of thing. Do you think that there is a rising awareness of those issues, and is this on the part of the state an effort to kind of address that, do you think? Or?
Absolutely. I think people are recognizing that there are folks in the community who really need an additional level of care beyond what can be provided at like the emergency room or through Semper Virens or through other acute care facilities. And there's a growing, I think, interest in determining how we can care for people who don't seem to be able to make good decisions for themselves during a period of episodic, issues that they're experiencing. And I think we're looking for good ways to navigate that without, committing people to mental health facilities long term without their consent. So this facility, this behavioral health triage center, would be voluntary, and so folks would be there of their own volition, and that's an important piece of the puzzle because we're talking about primarily about adults here, and adults do have the right to say no to services even if it's perhaps not in their best interest or we think it's not in their best interest.
Yeah.
So
it's a complicated issue there.
it really is.
So also the state treasurer recently visited Humboldt County, and it's Fiona Ma, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain who she is and what the visit did for the county government?
Yeah, so she was here in town to share information about some programs related to savings for college. So there are college or trade schools. There's a new program, a Cal Kids program through the state where people can enroll their children in essentially a savings account. The state will contribute to that, and then individuals can contribute to that as well to help them with access to education.
Yeah.
So she was in town talking about that. There was a public meeting that unfortunately our board meeting ran long, so I didn't get to go. But that was held at the Sequoia Conference Center to debut the program and share with people about it. And then she also expressed interest in partnering with us on other state grants and opportunities, and just made herself available to us for questions.
Yeah.
And I definitely plan to follow up with her. One of the things she mentioned in our back and forth kind of discussion was that there are some programs related to supporting housing creation that are earmarked specifically for Native American tribes, and that they have not enough applications. And so I plan to get in touch with her and with local tribes to see if there's interest in pursuing those funds.
Yeah. During her public comments, she mentioned the marijuana industry a little bit, or the cannabis industry, and talked about how, a few years ago there was a lot of hope and optimism about where that might lead, but now we're in a sort of a different place. It's a market that's struggling.
Yeah.
Can you sort of summarize what she had to say about that? And do you see that struggle, and what can the county do to sort of lift up the market, even though there are so many broad systemic issues with what's going on?
Yeah, I absolutely see that struggle, and she referred to, essentially the issues that the industry has been facing around, the value of their product. There's been an oversupply in the market, and now we're facing a period of time where it's just not sustainable for people to operate these farms or even other ancillary businesses like manufacturing or distribution businesses because of that oversupply. So I think historically, for the last few decades at least, Humboldt County has really been a major producer of cannabis, and in the unpermitted market, prior to this being a legal recreational substance, we basically had a large part of the market share. And now that it's something statewide that people can legally do, we're struggling to compete. So I think some of the things that we can do locally are, really seek out funds that help support the industry, that help make it more sustainable. One thing that the county recently did was release grant funds. Almost $19 million in grant funds will be going out to permitted farmers to increase their water storage capacities, so their environmentally sound water storage opportunities, and then to help them with energy savings through renewable energy. So those are a few things that we can do, is help be a mechanism for people to receive those grant funds.
Yeah.
But ultimately, we're really seeing quite a lot of challenges, and I think we'll continue to be looking to improve our cannabis ordinance, as well as to find ways to help folks market and find the niche in the industry.
There have been, there's I guess a lawsuit in place now, and I know that you're limited in what you can say about lawsuits and litigation, but talking about code enforcement practices and how certain people have gotten billed, and they say that it's after a satellite took pictures of their property, and what the satellite seems to indicate about development on their property isn't actually the case, so they're getting billed for things that they're not actually liable for. How problematic do you think the county has been in terms of this situation? Do you think that county code enforcement or the planning department needs to rethink how it's been handling that? A lot of people who are cultivators or whatever, they think that it's been like the county thought it was a cash cow when all this started, and so they started grabbing before the industry really got a chance to get its feet under it. Do you see that, or do you think it's just all part of the evolutionary process of getting something that works?
I can't speak to the particulars of that, obviously, of that litigation or the matters that are being brought up there. I do really want to go out and experience some of these compliance efforts with our staff if I can,
Yeah.
or at least really learn about it in more detail and evaluate for myself, how that process works. I will say we were tasked with implementing something entirely new as a county several years ago to pursue a path for a legal industry, and that has been fraught with challenges. So as we go and as we modify our cannabis-related land use ordinance and other regulatory measures, I think we have a chance for improvement, and the board directed, before I joined the board, directed staff to bring back information about that land use ordinance and potential revisions in the near future. So I think we'll be looking at that.
Okay. One of the things the county did do to help the industry was suspend, I think it's Measure S, right?
Yes, Measure S.
Measure S taxes for the next 2 years, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
But then we have this budget shortfall now. Mm-hmm. Do you think that was the right decision, or was it too premature, or is it necessary even though it might end up hurting?
Even successful farms were struggling to make their payments, and so I can understand where the board was coming from when they made that decision. Again, that was before I got on the board. Sure. So I'm just kind of living with the implications of that. Hopefully it allows folks a chance to get on their feet and recover for this couple-year period where they have that temporary suspension of the tax. But it's also a fairness issue because, an important issue to consider, that the voters enacted Measure S. And so we do have to be accountable to them. So I think a temporary suspension is warranted, but long-term we'll have to make sure that we're in line with what the voters are directing us to do.
Absolutely. One of the things that we're going to cover a little bit later on is wind energy. And you represent the 4th District, which is like the heart of industrial Bay Area, Humboldt Bay Area. How much of a transformation do you think we're going to see ultimately on our waterfront in Eureka? And how should people prepare themselves for what might be coming down the pike? Yeah,
I think we'll see quite a bit of dramatic transformation within the next 5 to 10 years. We'll likely see a lot of development on the Samoa Peninsula side with the Harbor District's new facility that Crowley is a partner in developing. Mm-hmm. And I think we'll also see a lot of changes on the Eureka waterfront, which the city of Eureka has jurisdiction over, but that is also my district. When it comes to the development of potential training facilities or additional facilities that help support that industry, some ancillary facilities. So there's a lot still being determined about, the leases were, winning bidders were selected, but those leases haven't even been executed with the federal government for those offshore wind energy areas. Mm-hmm. So that'll likely happen by April or so. After that, I think we'll start seeing a clearer picture of what that development's going to look like on the Samoa Peninsula, and I've been highly involved, had dozens of meetings and about that since coming into office, and I'm really well connected to the residents of the Samoa Peninsula, so I look forward to really advocating for what they need in the form of community benefits.
What would you say are their biggest concerns? I mean, obviously, their whole world is going to be shifting, so that's part of it, I'm sure. But what are they saying to you?
The infrastructure on the Samoa Peninsula, everything from roads and sewer infrastructure to lighting, to public amenities like parks, those are all concerns. And the Samoa Peninsula has, been historically developed for industrial scale, timber processing, and then, for many years has really been sort of a bedroom community for towns that have more employment, so and offer more jobs. So I think they're looking to address deferred maintenance needs and beautify the community and make sure that their neighborhoods are respected in that process and improved in that process. But I think additionally, we're going to see potentially thousands of additional workers, and we already have a housing shortage. So we really need to work on housing development right now.
Well, that sort of dovetails in with my next question. We have a freelance reporter, Ryan Hudson, who works with us occasionally, and we had a project that she did recently called Tents, Trash, and Trauma. She went out and she visited with folks who are living in the Eureka Slough area and sort of documented what their life is like. And we had a discussion about the history of this whole situation. And it seems like we've been following, I I don't want to oversimplify the process, but we've been following this group of people around, and kind of like they stay for a little while on the South Spit, and then we say, okay, you can't be on the South Spit. They come into Eureka, the balloon track, no, you can't be there. We move them from place to place to place, and there hasn't really been a permanent solution. What do we need to find a permanent solution to this, in your view? And is it actually even possible to sort of like make a significant dent in the homeless population around here?
I do believe it's possible to make a dent in the population. I think there are some people who we may struggle, we'll always struggle to serve. Yeah. But I believe that part of the problem is that we don't have enough housing in the community at every income level, including really affordable housing and including, housing for, medical personnel coming into the area, sure, or folks who have higher incomes, and developing anything in that spectrum helps to free up housing elsewhere in the community. So I believe we simply need to work on more housing at every income level. I say simply because it's not that simple, but
of course.
That is where I have focused my efforts as a policymaker, and where I want to continue to focus my efforts, because we've found that spending a lot of money on transitional solutions hasn't been particularly productive in getting people permanently housed, but it is extremely costly. So when we have limited resources for housing, what I want to see those go towards is things like our new housing trust fund that can help with matching funds for grants, and other assurances that we'll have enough money in the bank to get the project started, so that we can actually build permanent housing. And I believe we also need more permanent supportive housing, which offers supportive services for people who have healthcare needs and personal needs where they can't just be given keys to their own apartment and
There's
be okay.
There's a transition involved in
yes.
sort of stabilizing. And
absolutely, yeah.
We have about a minute left. I wanted to give you a chance real quick to respond. There was a controversy recently with Supervisor Bone having said something at a chamber event. First off, you've heard about that obviously, and what are your thoughts about those kinds of comments being made publicly and what's happened?
I've certainly heard about it. I was there. I heard the comment be made, and I brought it up at our board meeting. I believe we all, in leadership roles in particular, need to be treating people with respect and modeling the type of behavior that we want to see from our community, from our staff, from our youth. And so, I believe that we need to do better. Yeah.
There's a little bit of fatigue with some folks who think that, it's just a joke, or it's part of the woke police, or that sort of thing. Can you give me a response to that as to why that's not a good argument?
Women make up 50% of our population, and showing, just a basic modicum of respect to, the women in our community is really critically important to me. And I don't think that mocking someone is funny. There's plenty of things that are funny, and there's plenty of venues where you can make off-color jokes, but that was not one of them.
Thank you so much for joining us, and I appreciate your substantive responses. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. We'll be right back after this short break.
It's part of who I am.
On Finding Your Roots, Jay Johnson.
It's the American story.
And Angela Davis.
This is something I never expected to discover.
An unexpected family arrangement.
I can't undo it. I won't disavow it.
And DNA rocks the boat.
No.
Your ancestors came on the Mayflower.
No.
Finding Your Roots, only on PBS.
Tuesday evening at 8 on KEAT HD.
The James Webb Space Telescope.
Think about it as a telescope that enables us to see the hidden universe.
Its mission is only beginning.
We're just tapping into those abilities.
Is there an Earth 2.0 out there?
When you have new eyes, you discover new things. With Webb, we're discovering a new universe.
That's just amazing.
New eye on the universe on Nova.
Wednesday evening at 9 on KEAT HD.
Speaking of wind energy, the offshore wind industry could transform the Samoa Peninsula and provide good-paying jobs for both white and blue-collar workers. In December, 2 developers won the right to place wind turbines roughly 22 miles west of Eureka. A third company, Crowley Wind Energy Services, will oversee upgrading the port, including replacing this dock just south of the Samoa Bridge with a wind energy wharf.
The bearing capacity, the strength of these wharves is somewhere between 5 and 10 times the strength of a standard shipping container wharf. And there are none currently on the West Coast that are large enough to do this.
Why we feel the terminals are so important, because it connects everything together. San Francisco, let's just say they've got 60 acres to do pre-assembly. We could manage that terminal, operate it, and then when the components are pre-assembled and they're ready to be shipped up here to Humboldt, we have tugs, we have barges, that's what we do today, that could ship those components from that area in San Francisco up here, and then we can help do the construction.
It's unclear who will manufacture the turbine components and where, but the floaters, which support the turbines at sea, will be produced in California, if not in Humboldt Bay. Mooring cables will anchor the floaters to the seafloor.
They're so large that they have to be pushed across the ground like the space shuttle, inch by inch, onto a floating platform, a floating semi-submersible barge that sinks underneath of it. Then the floater's floating, the barge gets out of the way, the floater's moved over, the barge comes back up to the surface of the water, and you can launch another one.
You're going to need heavy lift cranes to help do that installation and then towing that huge system 20, 25, 27 miles offshore. You're going to need mariners to work on board tugs. You're going to need technicians who are going to be able to do some of that pre-assembly work that we talked about shoreside, and then potentially some of the O&M that's going to be done offshore. But then you're going to need other folks too that are going to be really adept in math and science, biology, information technology, logistics.
The industry will also need tradesmen and laborers such as scaffolders, welders, and bolting operators. This week, the Yurok tribe announced a partnership with Cal Poly Humboldt and College of the Redwoods to develop a wind energy workforce. In May, the Scotia Inn will host a conference featuring industry experts and governmental leaders discussing wind energy employment and supply chain opportunities. Tourist amenities will surround the new home for the Trinidad Lighthouse. In response to an eroding bluff, in 2018, the Trinidad Rancheria and the Trinidad Civic Club moved the lighthouse from the overlook down to a temporary location near the pier. Last week, the California Coastal Commission approved that location permanently, along with plans to mount the lighthouse on a concrete foundation and to add a pedestrian path, railing, and 2 benches. Cal Poly Humboldt has responded to student protests by modifying its housing plans. Students demonstrated last week after the university said it would offer on-campus housing next year exclusively to freshmen and transfers. Now CPH, that's what used to be HSU, says it will provide on-campus housing to some returning sophomores, juniors, and seniors. That's it for tonight. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you guys coming and visiting with us every Friday. Stay tuned and stay informed.